Good evening, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode of On the Fin Side here with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. I'm Brian Cat NFL on Twitter. Paul is fanatic_pick. The Dolphins are in the win column, taking the game 31-13 over the Jacksonville Jaguars on their only primetime game on Thursday Night Football. Moved to 1-2 on the season. The big story of the game here, Paul, is Dolphins go up 14-0 after 80-yard and 84-yard drives to begin the game. Then halfway through the second quarter, they go up 21-7 with another 75-yard drive. And then the Dolphins basically played defense and kneeled out the clock the rest of the way.
Yeah, the Dolphins completely chewed up half the first quarter before the Jaguars even touched the ball. It was a good, solid drive. It was a good, solid win. And the only thing I hated was I feel like this was a game they could have kept the foot on the gas. And normally I'm not a huge fan of that, but you know what? Tonight would have been a fun one to just drive the Jaguars into the ground, especially after listening to, an hour and a half of freaking NFL Network gargling the Jaguars. And then, basically Joe Buck spending most of his night very well, what's a polite term I can use here on YouTube? Orally impaled on Robinson.
Wow. Joe Buck is a St. Louis native, and I'm in St. Louis right now and born and raised in St. Louis, but I love Joe Buck. Anyway, I don't understand why people don't like Joe Buck or Troy Aikman or anything like that. But yeah, he was getting pretty annoying on the day. On the other hand, I'll say that. But as far as the game was concerned, at the beginning, Ryan Fitzpatrick starts out 11 for 11 midway through the second quarter. I mean, it was into the second half when he had his first incomplete pass, and that went off the hands of Mike Gesicki and fell to the ground. So fantastic game from Ryan Fitzpatrick. He goes 18 for 20, 160 something yards, which isn't a great yards total, but the Dolphins controlled the game so much in the beginning that they were able to just stay there the rest of the game.
Yeah, and just to stick with the announcer theme a little bit, and Ron already brought this up in our chat. Aikman, somewhere in, I believe it was the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth, suddenly decided to downplay Devontae Parker and his role and basically say, oh, yeah, you can totally see that the hamstring's still bothering him, and he's just out there trying not to get injured. How stupid is that?
Well, as far as what I was listening to that too, and what he had said is that he's clearly not going at full speed, and I think that can be taken in a different way because he's hurt. He's playing hurt, which is a compliment to me to Devontae Parker. So and Parker finishes the day with 6 catches, 80 yards, and what I admire about Parker is that I didn't think this was a guy that could play through any injuries. And C.J. Henderson was lined up on him. He was an impressive rookie through the first 2 games, 9th overall pick, has a PFF grade in the first two weeks of 80, and really did a good job in the first 2 weeks. But Devontae Parker, playing at questionable, did a very good job against him. And it shows how he can control those matchups when he's simply just out there with his size and his length.
He did. And I like the way he shielded and made some tough catches tonight. And really, you could see the frustration level in the Jags early in this game. And you could feel they're just I can't even think of the right word for it at this point, but just you could see the screw it look from half of them, and then just
I agree.
Boiling over in the second quarter.
Yep. Yeah, it was in the second quarter, and that's where the game really started to shift. To me, when the Dolphins went up 21-7, they were able to keep their foot on the gas from that point as far as the defense and the momentum of the game is concerned. And then the big play is at the end of the third quarter. Matt Hawk kicks them back into their into their own 2 or 3 yard line, and the Dolphins create a turnover. Ryan Fitzpatrick goes in head first to make it a 28-7 lead, and after that, the game was pretty much over. So, an impressive victory, a conclusive victory, so conclusive that it's the Dolphins' first double-digit win since December 2017. So, good, and it gives the Dolphins 10 days to prepare for Seattle and a lot of momentum heading into that game.
It does, and I was just going to bring that up too. That I think the 10 days to prepare for Seattle, getting a little bit of that good feel, not having a long trip to get home from Jacksonville. I think all those things could help Miami. Hopefully, we split the next 2 weeks at the very least, and really well played by Miami. And there's still room for improvement. I love the play of the offensive line tonight.
Yeah, the offensive line did a very good job. I'll have to go back as usual and check the tape on it. But what I like about it is we are finally at a point, and we've said it the last 2 weeks, where the offensive line is not screwing us over from week to week. We have 2 rookies out there, and actually Jesse Davis even played pretty well tonight from what I saw. So overall, he's not a good player, but what I like is that they've got that size on the offensive line to the point where if you can just hold it for 2, 3, 4 seconds, then you're going to be able to create some time for the quarterback. And we saw that early on, and we saw Myles Gaskin have a lot of success in the first quarter too.
We did, and Ron just pointed out one of my favorite moments in the game in our chat here. It's that Jakeem Grant run that I've been screaming for, and I know you've been waiting for. Seeing him take that ball around the end, I was loving it and losing it at that point in time. Like, that was probably the hardest I cheered all night.
That's the story of our life for Jakeem Grant, because opening kickoff, he takes it out of the end zone, which he shouldn't have, and took it to the 15-yard line. And then he has a great catch for 19 yards, which is a very important catch in the game. And then he had a bigger run for 29 yards on an end around. And the Dolphins should use that more and more, because it creates mismatch problems there on the offense. So, yeah, it'd be very good here. And as far as the grades, let's start out at the quarterback position, Paul. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 18 for 20, 160-something yards, 2 touchdowns, another rushing touchdown. And, you know, to me, he's somebody that plays best when he's, as far as yardage, when he's trying to make up that yardage and make up those points throughout the game. But he didn't have to. He only threw the ball a handful of times in the second or in the second half. So to me, he's the biggest reason why the Dolphins got off to the lead that they did. So I'm going to go ahead and give Ryan Fitzpatrick in the quarterback spot an A-.
I think with a great beard comes that great responsibility to lead people, and you know, as long as you don't have patchy sides or anything along those lines. No, I mean, it's Fitzpatrick's contagious. His energy's contagious. He led this team. He took this team on his back and nuts and guts, got it done tonight. And he played really well. I mean, he set that personal record for number of passes completed in a row to start the game. And I can't give him anything but an A here. This win was Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, and you look at the last 2 games now, his stats are 49 for 67, a 73% completion percentage, 519 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and 29 points per game. So kudos to Ryan Fitzpatrick here, and I think he really did drive this victory. At the running back spot, Paul, I'm going to throw it back to you.
I'm going to have to go with a B+ here, which was almost an A-. Gaskins played out of his mind tonight. Chandler Cox finally did something warranting a roster spot in this game and really opened up some holes. Matt Breida, he had a few things that didn't show up on the stat sheet. He drew a pass interference. It was pretty critical. Played okay. I'd love to see him get a few more touches. And then, you know, Jordan Howard fell over enough times to finally fall into the pool and get a touchdown. So it's I can give it a B+. I think Jordan Howard dragged this down.
Yeah, I mean, Chandler Cox has he certainly didn't grade out negatively in anything that we saw there. as far as Jordan Howard, he fell forward into the end zone, and that's pretty much it. What I was confused by was why Jordan Howard is good enough to be on the goal line, but he's also not good enough to be the guy that's in there in the fourth quarter when you have a 3-touchdown lead. That's something that doesn't quite make a lot of sense to me. But Myles Gaskin, when you look at him in this game, 53 yards in the first 2 drives of this game. And like we've talked about, this game was decided for the Dolphins in the first 2 drives of this game because they went up 14-0, and then they went up 21-7 midway through the second quarter. So Myles Gaskin certainly gets a good grade. In the middle of the game, after the first 2 drives, his yards per carry was not good. He barely got any yards, but he was certainly grinding it out, and he finished the game with 22 carries for 66 yards. Matt Breida is clearly Myles Gaskin's backup at this point. At the wide receiver position, Devontae Parker, like we said, has had 5 catches for 70, 75 yards.
69.
And what's that?
69 yards.
5 for 69. And he didn't need to have more than that because he created first downs and matchups in that space. Mike Gesicki had a great touchdown, but that was his only touchdown of the game. 1 catch for 15 yards. Preston Williams only had 2 catches for 7 yards and a touchdown. But that's all they needed to have because the Dolphins leaned on the Jaguars and played defense for the rest of that game. So because the receiving unit couldn't have proven otherwise, I'm going to give them a B+ here.
I'm going to give the receiving unit a B+ as well for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. Grant, I think, still needs to get more touches. I think Isaiah Ford, he continues to be a guy that doesn't end up with a lot of catches, but always seems to pop up in critical moments. Which I've been a fan of Ford for a while here, so I'm glad to see him getting that role and that little niche for himself. So yeah, I can agree with you on the B+ as far as that goes.
As far as the offensive line's concerned, Josh Allen had 1 sack on the night, but it was only on a play where Ryan Fitzpatrick very clearly basically took a Brett Favre, Michael Strahan 20th sack type of knee for that sack. Other than that, they had no sacks on the day. So how would you grade the offensive line on the day?
In all honesty, not just the fact they had no sacks on the day. I think they opened up a lot of running lanes in this one for Gaskins. I think they did a great job other than in very obvious we're running the ball downs, i.e., Jordan Howard's on the field. So really, I think overall, I think the offensive line did a great job, continued to develop. They're turning into one of the big bright spots on this team. I'm going to go with an A- for the O-line here and continue our trend of pretty good grades tonight for a pretty good game on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a B+ for them only because they played in the first half when it mattered the most, and the rest was just grinding the game out. They didn't make any key mistakes, but they didn't open up a whole heck of a lot of running lanes after the first 2 drives either. So we'll see what happens in the upcoming weeks now. And they go up against in the next 2 weeks a Seahawks defensive line that is pretty depleted and a 49ers defensive line that is also pretty depleted. On the defensive side of the ball, this is where it all mattered because it seemed like that in the first half, the only reason the Dolphins allowed 7 points was because offensively they had 80, they had 3+ drives of 70+ yards. And anytime the Jaguars got on the field in the first half, they were moving the football. But in the second half, it was a completely different story. So as far as the defensive line is concerned, Paul, how do you make sense of the front 7 and what do you grade them at?
Man, front 7. Whew. I thought the linebackers had a good game. The linebackers definitely manufactured some pass rush for us. I thought once we saw Sealer and Van Ginkel get in later in the game, they did a very good job rushing the passers, just on the stat sheet. Agba accidentally tripped and fell on top of Zach Sealer's sack to share a half sack with him, which was nice of him to do here. But really, I thought Sealer played a great game. I thought Christian Wilkins had a great game yet again. Davin Godchow does what Davin Godchow does. It's not going to be flashy. It's not going to be spectacular. It's not going to show up very often on the stat sheet, but it's a necessary role for this team. Agba and Lawson are just lost at the moment. And hopefully, whatever the hell is going on with Jason Strowbridge shakes itself out soon. Hopefully, we see some more Van Ginkel and Sealer on the field. Um, Grugier Hill had such a critical sack in this one. And really, God, the D ends just dragged this down for me. It's a B minus, which pisses me off because really the middle of that line, some of the backups and the linebackers played well in this.
Yeah. So B minus, I'm going to go with the B plus on this because yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. And the front seven is always the most difficult for us to talk about on it because Shaq Lawson at the defensive end spot, it doesn't seem like he ever does anything. Like it'd be one thing if he held his ground against left tackle, but he didn't do that against Cam Robinson when he was in the game before he got thrown out for that nonsense penalty. I thought Christian Wilkins and Davin Godchow were a little bit softer tonight. What I liked and what I saw and what I was encouraged by is when the Dolphins had a lead, Andrew Van Ginkel and Emmanuel Agba were able to pin their ears back and get to the quarterback. That was encouraging. And at the linebacker spot, also with a lead, Kyle Van Noy and Jerome Baker were able to drop back in coverage and be a little bit more opportunistic against wide receivers and crossing tight ends. I like that. So overall, I'm going to give this unit a B plus. But I think a lot of that also has to do with the Dolphins being able to play with the lead here.
Yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention as well was something that I know you'll be a fan of here is Raekwon Davis. And my thoughts on him at this point are pretty much summed up in I wish they drafted AJ Dillon or one of the other running backs that were on the table at that point in time. I like Gaskins, but again, it's Raekwon Davis just seems like a waste of a body and makes bad things happen when he's on the field, like letting a running back run right past him while he hand fights with an offensive lineman and takes himself out of the play and then falls on the guy after he's in the end zone.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Raekwon Davis. And what really confuses me and what brought down my respect level for PFF this past week was that they graded him as one of our highest players from this past week, which again, I know that they're grading him from play to play, but I don't understand how he just blindly takes on the offensive lineman ahead of him and then leaves a wide open lane behind him. So yeah, it doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense to me. So Raekwon Davis has to improve. And if you look at the last 2.5 years at Alabama, I don't think he will improve. I'm sorry to say. So, but Zach Sealer is somebody who immediately improved the defensive line when he got on the field. Same thing for Andrew Van Ginkel off the edge. So I'm gonna stay with the B plus on that. At the cornerback position, or excuse me, at the defensive back spot, Paul, Gardner Minshew didn't throw for a lot of yards until the Dolphins started dropping players back considerably. I mean, he only had 93 yards midway through the third quarter. So how do you grade the defensive back spot?
I think the defensive backs played really well in this one. I mean, it's Tay Hayes got ripped off on that pass interference call,
Yeah.
but we got a couple pass interference calls our way too that maybe shouldn't have been or might have been a little bit of a rip off. I know one particular one you and I were laughing about while we were sitting there, but it's I think overall they played well. Everyone outside of Jamal Wilson this one. I think Bobby McCain recovered a little bit in this one. But again, Jamal Wiltz or Jamal Perry or whatever the hell he changes his name to next year in hopes we won't know who it is. I remember, God, right before that interception, I had messaged you basically saying, I don't really give a shit how if he changed his name or not. It's the same crap player. And then I thought he got an interception and kind of redeemed himself a little bit. And he dropped it. And it was a lollipop, easy toss a beanbag to a toddler interception at that point, and he couldn't even come up with that. I'm over that experiment. I want to see Tay Hayes, Nick Needham, whoever the hell on the field, Jamal Wiltz, Perry, Shania, whatever his name is. I'm I'm done.
Yeah.
Oh, and a B. We'll actually a B plus.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Jamal Perry did not have his best game. And Bobby McCain we didn't hear his name tonight, which is usually a good sign for Bobby McCain.
Well, we saw him a lot.
Yeah, we did. He played a lot of snaps, which means in the deep half of that secondary, if I'm not saying his name, then he's not somebody that had any negative plays. So he's somebody that controls the front end of that secondary, which doesn't surprise me when the Dolphins are up 21-7. It's when the opposite happens, when he's trying to cover a very large field, and he can't do it, which is what we saw last week against the Bills. There's a lot to unpack on the secondary. First, I'm glad to see Xavier Howard be Xavier Howard again, which he started to look like in this game. Byron Jones being out was a big loss, but that was battled with DJ Chark being out too. I'll say this. When it comes to those cornerbacks who are in that 3 through 7 range, I'm scared as far as what we're bringing to the table, because to me, Noah Igbenogany is a borderline unplayable guy at this point, and he's 20 years old. And I understand that. Jamal Perry, yeah, he made a lot of mistakes tonight, but I feel like he's always around the ball. Nick Needham, I don't know about you, but I didn't see a snap from him tonight. So Tay Hayes, I hope we see more of him on the field at defensive back in the upcoming weeks.
I'm going to disagree with you a little on Igbenogany. I thought he had a better game tonight. He seems to be dialing in closer to orbit here as far as it goes, being around the ball and just shaking his mistakes off as we move here. Jamal Wiltz, I don't see getting better between missed tackles and it's I disagree a little. He seems to be around the ball because they're always throwing it to his guy, and I just, that said, Eric Rowe continues to be an unheralded hero in that secondary, as does Brandon Jones. And, it's when 4 of your 5 primaries are pretty damn good in the game. And, you got a rookie starting at a boundary corner for the first time all year with Byron out. I'll take what I can get from him as long as I see improvement. But some of the other guys filling in there, not a fan, especially Jamal, Consuela, whatever.
Yeah, I understand that. And look, Noah Igbenogany doesn't turn 21 for 2 months. This is what we signed up for when we drafted him at the end of the first round. And yeah, he did have a incrementally better game. And that's probably from my end what I have to look out for a little bit more than what he had last game. So we'll see. But I'm terrified after these first 2 cornerback spots. I hope the Dolphins can line up Xavier Howard and Byron Jones healthy against DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett in that Week 4 game against the Seahawks. At the defensive, at the excuse me. At the special team spot, Jason Sanders nails every field goal that he has, and Matt Hawk is playing lights out. He had that punt that he had inside the 3-yard line was fantastic. And it was a major game changer because the Dolphins were up 21-7 at that point. And they missed a 4th and 1, or they elected to punt on a 4th and 1, and Hawk hit it at the 1, landed on the 2, and then the Jaguars got the ball and then turned it over deep in their own territory. The Dolphins went up 28-7, and it was game over at that point. Kudos to Matt Hawk on that.
Kudos to Matt Hawk. Kudos to Jason Sanders. Kudos to our coverage teams. I'm going to throw a straight A on this.
Me too. I'm going to go with that. So let's get to our player of the game and our Coke Bus player of the game. Paul, I'm going to throw it to you.
I'm going to go. You know what? I want to give it to Fitz, but I haven't given it to a fat guy in a while here. I'm going to go rookie Solomon Kinley, who's playing probably the best guard this side of Jamie Nails we've seen from the Dolphins. And God, he continues to be a breath of fresh air. And the fact that his fat ass is going to be planted in the middle of that line for the years to come, I can't be anything but excited about. He is a monster. I'm going to use a term that somebody I heard during our draft process used, and I'm going to use it as a compliment. He's a big fat pig in the middle of our line, and I love it. I love it. So I'll give him my player of the game here. As far as my Coke Bus player, this one's easy for me. Absolutely, 100%. No runner-up. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Jamal Wiltz, Jamal Perry, Jamal, whatever your name is next season, so you can sneak back into the Dolphins locker room. Just stop. You are my Coke Bus player of the game, and it's not even close.
I'll tell you this. I think Jamal Perry right now is clearly the third best cornerback on this roster. I wouldn't start him. I wouldn't put another player ahead of him on the depth chart. I wouldn't put Igbenogany. I wouldn't put Tay Hayes. I would not put Nick Needham. I mean, I think he had some bad snaps here, but overall, I think he's always around the football. To me, the guy that's unplayable and is my Coke Bus player of the game is Noah Igbenogany at this point. When you look at that play against Chris Conley, when a very simple head fake from Gardner Minshew should have resulted in a touchdown, that's not going to be good enough next week against the Seattle Seahawks. And I don't know. Look, I understand that Igbenogany is going to be is somebody that we're waiting on, but I don't think he's good enough or playable right now. So he's my Coke Bus player of the game. Any final words here, Paul, after this victory, 31-13 over the Jaguars?
I got so distracted by your Coke Bus player. Who was your player of the game again?
Yeah, player of the game. Sorry, I thought we covered that. It's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Gotcha. All right, I can live with that.
For me, Fitzpatrick. Coke Bus player is Noah Igbenogany. Your player of the game is Solomon Kinley, and your Coke Bus player is Jamal Perry.
Yes, it is. And Jamal Perry, Wiltz, whatever. It got not gonna play here anymore.
Not gonna play here anymore. So
no, I'm good. It feels good to get that win, get that monkey off our back, get back to some winning Dolphins football, and really to see the improvement in this team. And don't go clamoring for Tua too early. It's let's ride it out with Fitzpatrick a little bit. Let Tua's injuries heal themselves up. We'll see him when it's time. And there's a lot to be excited about for this team moving forward. There really is.
Well, I mean, it looks like Tua is healthy enough to play right now, but the reality is Fitzpatrick is playing at a very high level, and it doesn't make sense to go to Tua until that ship has sailed with Fitzpatrick. It looks like it's a perfect bridge, as we talked about, and why we wanted Fitzpatrick here a couple of years ago. So other than that, I mean, that's going to do it for our breakdown of the Jaguars Dolphins game. The Dolphins win 31-13. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify. And I'm Brian Cat NFL, and Paul is Fanatic_pick. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the fin side. Solo D, take us home.